Good evening. Former Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev died today at the age of 77. Reports from Moscow say he suffered a heart attack at his country home 25 miles from the Russian capital and died in the Kremlin hospital. CBS News diplomatic correspondent Marvin Kalb, who covered Khrushchev for 5 years in Moscow, looks back at his career.
From October 1964, when he was booted out of power, until his death today, Khrushchev lived in a country home near Moscow. He was not exiled to Siberia, he was not imprisoned, he was not shot. He died in bed, and he can thank the changes he himself brought to Russia for this simple touch of normalcy. His face reflected his history, the roundness, the high cheekbones, the small gray eyes, the features of a Slavic peasant born on the Ukrainian-Russian frontier in 1894. By 1917, there was revolution in Russia, and Khrushchev, like countless others, joined the army and the Communist Party. Shrewd and unbelievably tough and calculating, he was at Stalin's side by 1929. By the time Stalin died in 1953, after decades of murder, purge, war, and revolution, Khrushchev had zoomed into high prominence, one of the handful destined to govern post-Stalinist Russia. For a time, collective leadership reigned, but in February 1956, Khrushchev, then first secretary of the Communist Party, made his move. He astounded everyone and set Russia on a new controversial course by denouncing his own mentor, Joseph Stalin. Thus began the Khrushchev era, buoyant, bouncy, ebullient, full of extraordinary, patently unrealistic claims. In 1959, the famous kitchen debate with then Vice President Nixon, whom Khrushchev never liked. Khrushchev boasting about Soviet Sputniks in progress, belittling American achievements, but deep down admiring and envying them more than he could possibly admit. Soon he was to see them himself, and one of his wartime heroes, Dwight Eisenhower. Together they created the spirit of Camp David, mutual recognition that war among nuclear giants had become madness. Unlike Stalin, Khrushchev loved foreign travel, which enriched him. Corn he loved more. It reminded him of his childhood. It symbolized progress. He had a marvelous time with capitalists, which bothered many of his conservative colleagues. May 1960, Paris, where the spirit of Camp David died, a summit too, because an American U-2 spy plane had been shot down over Russia. The atmosphere suddenly chilled. Though in this sense the U.S. had double-crossed him, Khrushchev could not shake his fascination with America. He returned to New York and the UN, where his antics amused and disgusted many staid diplomats. He delighted newsmen, a Romeo and Juliet scene on Park Avenue, Khrushchev Juliet, reporters Romeo, they beseeching him for news, he bestowing it upon them like so many rosy propaganda petals. Soon after President Kennedy's inauguration, a Vienna summit was arranged. Until his death, Khrushchev believed that the key to world peace was tolerable relations between Washington and Moscow, a belief that destroyed Russia's relations with communist China. At home, he had problems, but he promised his political foes a major victory in West Berlin. His tactic was to employ missiles in Cuba, then strike a deal. The missiles out of Cuba for the West out of Berlin. The tactic failed, and within 2 years, Khrushchev was kicked out of power, denounced as a bungler and a harebrained schemer. Occasionally over the next 7 years, Khrushchev could be seen in Moscow voting for his local candidate to the Supreme Soviet. Still popular, surrounded by admirers, he had brought brightness and hope into the grayness of Russia, and Russians, who are an emotional people, never forgot. The Khrushchev era lasted for 10 years, but they were 10 long years. Khrushchev recognized that nuclear war among nuclear powers was madness, and he recognized, too, that people could not live in a constant state of fear. In the book ascribed to him, Khrushchev remembers, he urged Russia to open her doors, let her people travel, let some freedom ring. He moved Russia a small way in that direction, a great deal to say about one man in one lifetime. Marvin Kalb, CBS News, Washington.
President Nixon, writing in 1961 about his famous kitchen debate with Khrushchev, said, "I felt like a fighter wearing 16-ounce gloves up against a bare-knuckled slugger who had gouged, kneed, and kicked." Today, the White House said Khrushchev was a major world figure whose contribution to Soviet history is well known. The statement said the president was well acquainted with Mr. Khrushchev and respected him as a vigorous and colorful advocate of his beliefs.